listeners. You made it to this beautiful day, the last Sunday of 2020. That's my way of saying good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Let's Talk Marriage. You know how we do it every Sunday. And today will not be different. There's a Christmas edition. But in addition to talking rice, chicken, and stew, we would like to look at something very important, talking about domestic violence in marriages. And I have a lady and a gentleman who are civil society activists right here in the studio and they've been working in the area of domestic violence actually. So they're here to throw more light on domestic violence and how to curb domestic violence in marriages. I'm talking about Tombari Dumka Kote. He is chairman Rivers Indigenous NGOs and Civil Society Network, Ring Gox. Tombari, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, listeners. Good afternoon, Rachel.
And I also have Otonwa Sukri. This is your name, eh? You will teach me how to call it. Is it a French one?
Yeah.
Okay, Sukri, gender rights advocate. You're welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, listeners.
And my name is Rachel Orna. You're welcome. Oh, I need to stand. It's not working, right? You come over here. Oh, stand.
Okay.
No, when you talk, maybe come and say he's a regular here in the house. Somebody, you're welcome.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Rachel. Good afternoon, listeners.
Let me tell you, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you all too.
Okay, and I have Otonwa here also. She is a gender rights advocate. Otonwa Sukre. Come on, teach me how to call your name.
Okay. Good afternoon, listeners. My name is Utonwa Sukri.
Wow, that was a French name. And my name is Rachel Ona. Welcome to the program. Now, Tombari, what is gender? What is violence against persons? You call it VAP. There are many ways to call domestic violence. What is domestic violence? In the civil society world, it's known as VAP, right?
Yeah.
Violence against persons, which covers both women, men, and children.
Yes.
So, can you define it for us?
Yeah, in its simplest word and definition, lack of stress, we see domestic violence as violence at the home front, violence against a man, against a woman, or it could even be against a child. Yeah. So hence it's at the home front, it is domestic violence.
Okay. All right. Otongwa, do you have an additional definition, or you go by that?
I go by what you say.
Okay. Now, can we look at factors responsible for domestic violence? There are some factors, definitely.
Yes, there are a whole lot of factors responsible for domestic violence, and as frontliners that have been on the field on issues of domestic violence, we also come to realize that there has been a change in the trend. However, some very predominant factors include include economic and social factors, religious and cultural belief, and even parenting has been factors responsible for gender-based violence or domestic violence at the home front.
Okay, now if I got it right, you mentioned religious factors, you mentioned parenting, you mentioned economic factors. Can you throw more light on them one after the other? How does how does social issues cause domestic violence? How does parental upbringing cause it, and how does economic reasons, economic concerns, how do they cause domestic violence? Just tell us in detail.
Yeah, when we talk of social issues, it concerns issues about the social norms of the society. Like some persons who are victims of domestic violence today are not victims by their own making, but they become victims by societal norms. For instance, when we have issues of some women being bad from getting married, or some women being handed in marriage forcefully to a man without their own consent, it puts them at the position of a slave, and whoever has gotten married to them could always take advantage of that. Now we also have at the economic front where there is job loss of from on the side of either the man or the woman. It could also result into domestic violence because when, for instance, since the COVID-19 outbreak, we've had instances where some family breadwinners have lost their jobs, and then there has been pressure on the part of the family, either on feeding or meeting up with other financial needs of the home, and this has really not gone well with partners who are not understanding. This has also resulted in domestic violence. Now, on the part of parenting, we've had issues where parents do not allow married couples to be on their own. Parents come in to dictate, and then through dictating, and the worst of it all is when a child is growing up and the child see that in his or her home you see irregular occurrence of domestic violence, battery that happens between the man and the woman at the home front. It goes on well with that child, and that child grows with it. So at the end of the day, you come to discover that that child will see it like a normal practice that is taking place in his or her life, and that child will grow with it. We've gotten to have issues where we resolve issues between couples, and then you see the mother-in-law coming to say, look, my husband has been with me for years. I suffered domestic violence, and then look, my child is not even treating you as bad as I was treated, but yet I endured and stayed. Please stay.
Somebody say it again. You mean some women are cool with the issue of their children being beaten by men? They say, I endured it, then I want you to endure it, right?
Yeah.
They're cool with it. They're okay with it. It's a normal thing to them. Some mothers.
Yeah. To some mothers, it's a normal thing because they went through that experience, so they don't see anything wrong in it. When they have their child being battered in marriage, or when they see their child suffering from domestic violence, they don't see anything wrong in it. They say, look, I went through it, I survived it, and then there is nothing wrong in it. You can go ahead, not minding that the times have changed.
All right. Now let's look at measures and ways. Before we go to how to curb it, we'll take real life experiences. If we're saying domestic violence without giving you real life experiences of what has been happening, you may think we're talking stories, telling you stories, but there are real life situations we would like to share with you. Sukri, I prefer calling you Tom Wajari. What is sukri? That's sugar, right?
Yeah.
Sugar, that's the word for French word for sugar, sucre. I did French at least. Okay, now you would like to share your experience with us because she is a victim of domestic violence actually. And because of that, she decided to be a gender rights advocate. So Utonwa will share her experience with us.
Okay. 2013. It happened. I met a young man, so loving and everything. Because of tribe, the family did not accept me. Even after everything, I stayed, but it became worse. He will beat me, he will flog me upon everything. The pressure, okay, we said about family, the pressure was coming from his own family because of my tribe. I'm not from his tribe. So the family said I must not, and he must not marry me because I'm not from there. After everything, he will beat me, he will lie me down, he will flog me with mopping stick. Even in front of neighbors, he will push me out in the rain. And I spoke up and I left the marriage, and I'm happy today.
Wow. You know, she just summarized the story. She's been modest. Can you tell us what really happened? You know, that led to the loss of your twin children. You lost your pregnancy and all that. And the children would have been 7 today, you said.
Yeah.
Tell us how it happened.
Even when I was pregnant, He will come back. He sees me like a beast. He will come back. He will beat me. He will lock me in the wardrobe. To the extent he said, "If you don't leave, I will kill you. If you don't leave, I will kill you." Even when the neighbors, everybody came, my mom came and begged him. He said he would beat me and beat my mom, which happened. He was beating me, and when my mom was like, "What's happening? Why are you beating her? She's pregnant." Do you know that this man slapped my mom, like, was beating my mom in my presence and in the presence of his own family?
And then the children, what?
I lost the children when they rushed me to hospital because I had placenta abruptio. The placenta separated from the babies, so that's how I lost the children because of abuse.
Wow, this is so touching. Sorry for that. I'm sure you will not. It will take you time to overcome this. Now, Tambari, you've been working in the field too, and you want to share other practical experiences with us, which you've handled.
Yes, we've handled several cases of domestic violence, several cases of gender-based violence that is taking place at the home front. We've had cases where the men have also become victims of domestic violence.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say. Is it just a woman thing? Don't men also suffer domestic violence? Because the trend is changing. We heard about, we have cases of men being stabbed to death and all that. Have you handled any such cases involving men?
Yeah, a whole lot of them. Now it starts from the abuse that men suffer. And that's why we are very happy and pleased that the state government has just signed into law the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law of Rivers State, which makes emotional and psychological abuse a crime in the state. Because a whole lot of men are being faced with domestic violence in form of verbal abuse, in form of verbal attacks, in form of regular abuse, regular psychological torture in the hands of the women. Even if women also suffer this, a whole lot of men are going through this because of maybe they are unable to meet up with the financial needs of the home at a certain time, or maybe they are unable to meet up with their peers at certain time. You see a whole lot of abuse coming their way on the side of the women. And on that side, you see that some of these men who are unable to endure will have no option than to launch a physical attack, which leads to battery, which we now call physical violence. But that is, though it is not an excuse for that, but however, women should also know that abuse in verbal form is now a crime and it's punishable by law. So everyone at the home front could suffer from can be a victim of domestic violence. The man can be a victim, the woman can be a victim, even the children in some cases have become victim of domestic violence. So it goes anyway, but we pray no one is a victim. Recent cases where we had some women come to complain that, look, they've been battered at home, they have not, their welfare have not been taken care of by their husbands, and then we'll say, okay, can we invite your husband, and we get the contacts, we call this man to say, come, can you come and tell us what is really happening at the home? And then by the time the men come, you get a different story altogether. You see that in some cases, the women are even the ones at fault. Because when you launch an attack on a man that you know is the breadwinner of the home, you know that economically you are powerless, and the person that is generating the power economically, you launch an attack on him, he is human. So it is right when we encourage women and even the men at the home front to avoid issues that will degenerate into violence at the home front. We've also had cases where some women, like one of the very recent cases in Emeka, where the man brought out a gun and was threatening the wife and children with the gun, wanted to kill them. They had to run out of home for safety, and We were able to come to their rescue. Today, we were able to provide them a transit shelter. We were able to also, just some few days ago, empower them economically for the woman to start a business. Because when you are not doing anything and you want heaven to bring down everything, it is also a factor responsible for domestic violence from our experience.
Now, while we were discussing, you probably talked about third-party marriage and, some parents giving out their children just like that. Can you throw more light on it? That it's a cause, it's a factor responsible for
Very
domestic violence. Tell us about it.
Very well. The issue of third-party marriages, though, is very prominent in the eastern part of this country, and in fact, statistics of the cases we've handled of recently has exposed the fact that there needs to be an overhaul of the marriage system in this part of the country, because when you see a man will come home like during Christmas like this, bring home a car, or maybe he's wearing a new clothes, gets to a family and say, I heard your child is in Lagos, it's in Abuja, I want to marry that child, and deposit money with the family, and the mother or the father will call that child and say, please come back home, there is a husband for you. And then the next thing, that child without her consent is moved into the house of that man. 2-3 years later, they start having problem. Now we also had some instances where the child is maybe at home here. They say because the man is abroad, the man demands a picture of the woman, which is sent across to him, or he sees on Facebook, and the next thing the parents will say, look, that man is worthy, that man can take care of you. In fact, he has been giving us financial support. We want you to marry that man at all costs. And at the end of the day, that woman moves in and starts experiencing domestic violence because it was not her consent, she was not part of the original contract, and there's no way she will be able to endure. This calls that partners, before going to marriages, must be prepared within their heart, emotionally and physically. They must be prepared to take the challenge, knowing that marriage is not a cause where you go and do experiment. It's not for children. It's just for mature minds. So that it's not for third parties to dictate. Or a man will get married to a woman, and then the mother-in-law come in to dictate either for the man or for the woman. You allow them to live their own life, allow them to plan their own family, allow them to be their own. And this way, a whole lot of these issues of domestic violence will be curbed.
So you're saying that, example, now that it's Christmas, this is the heat period, when people will travel and then marriages will be arranged for them. At the end of the day, the woman will end up suffering domestic violence because the marriage was arranged.